Play your guitar. Is that a bass?
It's a guitar.
It's a guitar.
It's a
Oh yeah,
Squire
it's short. It's no
Stratocaster.
longer.
Hey, everybody. We just get talking in the studio. This is how we do it over here.
Yeah.
Super excited to welcome you to a brand new episode of Shut Up
And Thrive.
Well, welcome back to the actual studio. I tell you, Dimitri
Heliopolis.
that interview was so much fun, but having you in Chicago and me being back here, and it's so nice to see your smiling face.
Oh,
welcome in
you.
Debra Sunderland. There she is.
Thank you, Brandon. You're so sweet. Yay, my co-host. He's awesome. We have a lot of fun learning and growing together and having amazing guests on, and we're super excited to share Craig with you in a moment. So we're going to catch up first. And why do we do Shut Up and Thrive? What is Shut Up and Thrive about? Just a friendly reminder.
Shut Up and Thrive is about telling that inner voice inside of you. We all have this voice inside that is constantly challenging us, trying to keep us safe. But ultimately, that's holding us back. And what we want to do is we want to tell that inside voice that's telling us to be safe and to respond to fear.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Shut up.
I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm not going to let you hold me back. And we're going to live in abundance.
That's right.
And we are going to thrive.
Yes. I love that.
Did I nail that right there? Is that
you nailed it. Yes. So, dear ones, we just celebrate you because everyone, we believe, is a unique gift. And when we shut up the part of us that keeps us from becoming that person, we can live that way and impact the world like no one else can because we're so unique. And just want you all to know that. And it is common. It is not that there's something wrong with you, that you have these thoughts that say, you're not enough. Why did you do that? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with them? Why can't things be different? We all fall into that because the brain, as Brandon had said, is wired to keep us where we are. It actually fights for your limitations. So our work is to notice that, to notice the belief we have that doesn't make us feel good, that holds us back. And it's actually getting out of the head and listening to emotional intelligence, listening to our heart. Where does our heart want to go? And trusting the heart, because I believe God gives us the desires of our heart. And if we listen and follow that, things will align. Trusting the body, trusting the heart, and lastly, trusting the mind. And we know in the United States, we haven't been taught to use those other learning centers, our other brains, as we call it, the body brain and the heart brain. And so this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about that, is how do we shift out of the head, because that's where we've lived, all of us, and ignore our emotions. Friendly reminder, when we do not pay attention to our emotions and we push them down, which most of us do, it gets stored as triggers in our adrenals and it turns into cortisol. And that cortisol is not a good thing for us.
We don't like cortisol.
No, cortisol ain't no good. And what happens is it traps us into reactive thinking. And that reactive thinking is something that we think is normal. Because it's already wired in our mind. This is how we should do things. This is what's right. This is what's wrong. This is what you need to do. And it doesn't become a curious mind. It is a one path thinking. And so our work is to rewire our mind, not just to say, shut up. Yes, of course, shut up. And what am I going to replace my thoughts with? And that replacing over and over a new thought creates a new path for our mind. So then it becomes a new way of thinking, but we've got to practice. So shutting up and thriving is a practice, guys. It's never a one and done. So celebrate you. There's nothing wrong with you. We're always learning and growing. And today we're here to learn and grow. So what do you learn in, Brandon, these days?
Well, first of all, everything. You're saying all of those things, and I've heard you say something similar to that, I don't know, 40 or 50 times. And I think it needs to be said like another 40 or 50 times. But finally, after having all these conversations, starting a new business in August, I've had a lot of challenges over the last couple weeks, and it's amazing how when the thing that I took out of what you just said was you said you got to notice it.
Mm.
We get in this unconscious way and you stop noticing things. And I've really intentionally, I think I'm finally getting it, Debra, because when things inevitably happen, nothing is good or bad. But everything is for our learning. And that is something that takes a long time to, I mean, you have to really practice it and you have to notice when something doesn't go the way that you want it to. And you can go, it can be frustrating. You can have the emotions, feel the emotions all the way through. But ultimately, what is my learning from this? And if you can take everything as this isn't good, this isn't bad, it's not going to take me over. What am I taking away from this? Everything is for my learning. It's been a godsend to me because I think last year the things that have happened in the world, just the things that have been going on with this new business, would have had me spiraling and living as a victim in some circumstances that we've been in. But I've actually been able to stop and go, how is this for my learning? And coach that to my team, seeing me recognize those things, not get dysregulated, identify what it is, take a pause and say, how is this for our learning? Let's work through this. This is okay.
Love that.
It's been absolutely magical. I mean, all the things that you say, you can hear what she's saying, but until you actually practice these things and you start to notice, when you notice those moments and you can actively say, how is this for my learning? That's what I've been doing actively for the past several weeks, and it's been magical.
Love that. I love that. So beautiful. And you're absolutely right. Great picking up is noticing. All of us, guys, you've heard me say this many times, every single person has the same brain, wired the same for protection. And it is just noticing. I always say, you've heard me say this, if we don't have peace and joy in our body, it's because we're believing a story. We're believing a fearful thought. And to question that, like you said, how is this for my learning? And now that you're starting this new business, there's going to be a lot of newness. And newness means we're trying things. And I always say, we're just testing and tweaking. Instead of saying, there's something wrong with me or I'm failing, we're just testing and tweaking so we can learn. And we want to learn, or we can use the word failure. Failure is feedback. That's all that is. And so if we're learning something new, we want to fail as much as possible quickly so we can continue to learn. And it's kind of like, I think about myself being a violinist as a young person. And my goal as a young person was always to win and be the best, whether it was track, academics, my music. And I would get super upset with myself when I couldn't learn a piece right away. And I would take my bow from my violin and whack the music sheets. I would be so angry with myself. Now, wow, like, can you learn when you're angry with yourself? No. So guess what I would do? I would do the same thing over and over again. I sure became first chair violinist, but could I have done it a little more easily and peacefully to myself? Could I have been kinder to myself? Yes. And the crazy thing is my son became a classical guitarist. And at a young age, at age 7, he was getting upset with himself. And being the observer of him and seeing myself in him, I could be like, wait a minute. Honey, can you be easier on yourself? You're just learning this. How are you supposed to know this? Because you haven't tried it before. So guys, I'm just saying I'm learning right with you. So how can it just be that we're just testing things out and we're just learning, and how we can get curious and how can we be kind to ourselves? And one last thing I'm going to say around, you brought up victimhood. In our world of consciousness, when we are unconscious, when we're on autopilot and doing the same thing over and over again, in our world of victimhood, there is 3 stances that we tend to take as victims. One is, I can't do it. I don't know. the world is falling apart, so this is all happening to me. We're at the effect of what's going on outside of ourselves. Or we take the stance of heroing, which many leaders do, take on more than their responsibility because they don't trust someone or something else, and then they exhaust themselves and get out of their lane, and it creates a distrust with their team or their people because they don't trust them. They're saying that unconsciously and showing that they know it better than their team. Or we take the stance of villainization. I'm right and you're wrong. And so we just want to notice those patterns that we've developed inside of ourselves when we're not conscious, and get curious around how we can be kinder and just learn. How is everyone learning? Because who wants to make a bad outcome? No one. So if we give grace to ourselves and each other, then things could be a lot better.
I love it. Is it time?
It is time.
I'm so excited about this moment. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is Craig Coyle. I said that right?
You said it right.
Cole?
Not call. Not call. Coyle.
We have Craig Coyle in studio, and I am so excited to tell you who he is. He is, first of all, he's a West Point graduate. He's a former Army Apache helicopter pilot and aerospace program manager turned leadership development consultant. He's the founder of Operation Lead and host of the Frontline Leadership podcast. His work applies to the same systematic approach the military uses to develop pilots to the leadership crisis happening on factory floors and in operations environments across the country. Guys, welcome in to Shut Up and Thrive. Craig?
I could sit here and listen. I mean, just the things you guys were saying are so important. Two concepts that changed my life and changed my ability to be self-aware, which I was not developed in as a kid. I came from a broken family. Two concepts that changed my life. Understanding the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, which is what you were explaining. And understanding the difference of being trapped in a victim mindset and a hero mindset. Choosing to have agency over your life. And, you know, we're never one or the other. And I think you were hinting at that, Debra. We're always constantly in this battle of being in between. And we can be in one mindset in one area of our life and trapped in the other on the other side. Like everything's so compartmentalized sometimes. But wow, so important.
Yeah.
So important.
This is exciting that you know this about yourself. And it's interesting because our experiences, broken home or as a young child, we learn to play out patterns of protection and how we show up for ourselves and people in the world. And so tell us about, how did you become a West Point grad, and like what's that journey been like for you?
Well, it's so funny, you know, when you talk to anybody who aspires to go to an institution like that, especially like the generation I came from post 9/11. I grew up in New York. I watched the Twin Towers fall. I saw my friends and their families impacted by that. I had a best friend growing up. His dad was in the FDNY, worked out of a firehouse in Queens, was on the Williamsboro Bridge coming back from work, watched the first plane hit, turned around, went back into work. Didn't see him for another 2 weeks. Thankfully, he was okay.
Wow.
But like but like our community, you know, suburban New York community was rocked by this. And that
country was rocked by
it truly was. And
but I can imagine how hyper.
Exactly. And you know, for me, I was, you know, it was a patriotic community, the nation, and I was so inspired by how our world responded to that I felt this call to serve. And I think anybody that goes to an institution like that feels that. But there's always other more personal motivations. And for me, you know, my family really fell apart when I was about in 8th grade. I'm one of 5. I'm a middle kid. You know, everybody takes that kind of tragedy in a different way. Well, for me, I personally said, well, I don't want anybody's help. I'm going to figure this whole life thing out on my own. And I grew up 30 minutes from West Point. I'd always been obsessed with aviation. I learned that, you could fly in the military, and that was one of the easiest paths to the cockpit. And immediately I was like, well, I can make this work. Then I don't have to rely on anybody to get me through college. I'll be at one of the premier institutions in the world, and I can look back at everybody I was so angry with when I was growing up and say, I didn't need you. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, no, it's not. It totally makes sense to me, because I make up the story that you were heartbroken about your family. And the way that you dealt with is, I'm going to put the wall up and I'm going to make this happen, and I'm not going to open my heart. And this is my path, how I'm going to do this.
And I was so, as an individual, and this is really kind of what led me into where I'm at today, but I was so successful as an individual. Valedictorian in my high school, West Point graduate, flight school, Apache pilot. I thought that the way I was approaching life was how you win at life. And guess what happened when I stepped into my first real leadership role? I quickly realized that's not how it works.
It wasn't what you thought it was, right?
And I had to do some, it was a really, really tough season of my life, because everything I'd worked so hard to achieve, within 6 months, I was ready to give it all up, because I was falling flat on my face. And that was the season where, thankfully, I had some incredible mentors come into my life that put some of the concepts that you guys were talking about in the opening. And like, I was an emotionally broken and immature person. I looked successful on paper.
Yeah.
But inside, I didn't know how to, I was a child inside. And I had been broken down. I had been, emotionally abused based off just how my mom reacted to everything that was falling apart in her life. And that was the voice inside my head. And so I had to learn. I had never been taught about a growth mindset. I had never been taught about how our mind works. I had never been taught about how affirmations work and how to speak into yourself and all of these things. But it changed my life.
So I've got tears, because it's such a beautiful heart, and I can relate to this so much.
Yeah.
And the winning and the achieving and overachieving and thinking that that's the way, and the not giving up and the push that takes, and that push keeps you from feeling. And when you step into a leadership role, you can't control other people. And so it makes me remember my whole, like, the reason that I'm here is because I almost died winning, and thinking that was the most important piece. And that's exactly what we're taught in the United States, is that achieving and winning is everything. That's success. And we do it without being fulfilled. We do it with an emptiness and meaningless. We lose our meaning of who we are. And so I'm grateful that you came to your senses at an early age, and that you had these beautiful people come alongside of you to say, wait a minute. And so tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I was 23 years old. I was, 6 months out of flight school. I'd just taken over an organization of about 20 or so people. And, at this point I'd been sold, or I don't know if sold's the right term, but I've been kind of articulated and believed like there was a certain path my career had to go to progress as a pilot and as an aviator, because it really just starts in flight school. And that's kind of what I talk about with leaders today is, there's so much more to developing as a leader than, an initial onboarding or something like that, right? If you look at every profession, we were talking about this offline, that's what true development looks like. But so I took over this organization, and I was the only certified Apache pilot in the organization. They were part of an Army modernization effort, and they had just finished flying an aircraft. It was the OH-58 Kiowa that was getting phased out of the Army. And so I didn't touch an Apache for 9 months after flight school. 9 months. And I felt like my career was over before it even started. And at the time of all this, things that are outside of my control, right? But are impacting things that I believed were paramount to my success as an individual. I was also in charge of people. All these people were older than me, more seasoned than me. All of them were also going through a personal crisis because the Army just took away their vehicle, if you will. And they were just, as this organization was developing, and I was still a high performer, working hard, like all these things. I think I got to a place where I was so frustrated at the things I couldn't control. And I didn't really have a personal agency and a mindset where I was focusing, like I was able to just focus on what I could control. That every day, these emotions were starting to pour out. And I was essentially reflecting all this frustration on the people I was leading and on the environment around me. And it was negatively impacting the environment. So at one point, I had a performance review with one of the best leaders I've ever worked with, and he pulled me aside and he said, Craig, you have so much potential, but what's going to hold you back is your emotions. And I didn't even have a frame of knowledge to understand how to receive that, but it opened a door. The first book I read was Mindset by Carol Dweck. And that book, reading that book, opened my life to this world of personal growth, personal development, and true, what I like to say, true leadership development, not the technical side of leadership development, which is what I had been exposed to for 6 years at that point. But things like, how do you talk to yourself? Winning the war in your mind, emotional intelligence. How do you have a crucial conversation? How do you motivate, engage, activate an employee? How do you tap into their needs? How do you take a team from point A to point B? And how do you make people's lives better doing that while still creating the results? Because our businesses and our organizations, they have to have results, right? We can't just be here coddling people. So, and I caught the bug. It was amazing. And it transformed me as a leader in the Army. Everything I was trying so hard to create, when I started focusing on these things instead, all of it fell into place.
So I super appreciate you and being vulnerable here. And I would love your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
My experience in working in pretty much every industry you could shake a stick at, with all different size organizations, from multi-billion to startups to, wealth management to architecture, engineering, construction, healthcare, marketing, you name it, tech. I've noticed that most leaders are the same.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad.
Yeah.
And what I've come to believe is that they're just like me and you, that they've pushed really, really hard to get where they are, but they haven't done the work that needs to be healed inside of themselves, because are addicted to winning, addicted to controlling, addicted to getting somewhere in order to meet the goal, to feel good temporarily, but it's never enough.
Right.
And so it's this push, and then they push their people, and it becomes a very unhealthy organization because their way becomes right. And they're attached to that way. And it is my way or the highway. And dear leaders, I'm not saying this against you. I'm just like you. And how I've come to this understanding is asking these beautiful leaders 3 questions. You've all heard me ask this, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. 1, do you believe you're enough? 2, do you believe you have enough just right here, right now? And 3, do you know how to love yourself? And Dimitri, who was on our podcast 2 weeks ago, is the only person who has said yes to those 3 questions. And so I'm wondering your experience around that and your thoughts.
I love it. And I've heard you share those questions on a couple other podcasts, so I was ready for them. But I think if you ask any leader who hasn't done some of this personal work, those questions would stop them in their tracks. Because you're right. I mean, I think the world we live in, especially these days with social media, where even in your off time, you're comparing yourself in every segment of your life. You're subconsciously comparing yourself to everybody else. It's really hard to stop for a moment and think about how you feel about who you are and where you are today. Because we all, it really doesn't matter where you are in life. You always want to strive. You're always trying to be somewhere a step further along. But it takes me back to thinking about, is it, at the end of the day, is it about the end state, or is it about the process that gets you there?
Mm-hmm.
I know you have an athletic background.
Mm-hmm.
I do a little bit of running. I'm actually running the marathon here in town this weekend.
Awesome.
So,
Oh, and you're going to ride by my house then?
oh yeah, wonderful. You could cheer for me.
I will.
When I'm looking miserable.
Yeah. What's your pace going to be, do you think?
So this is my first marathon.
Okay.
A lot of elevation gain here in Nashville. So I'm trying to keep, minimal expectations, but I want to run under 4. I'm hoping to be around 3:40. My long-term goal is to run sub 3 and run Boston. So that's
awesome.
That's what I wanna do.
So I'm going to come out and look for you.
Yeah, but in the athletic world, the people that are successful athletically don't necessarily do it for the end result. They do it because they've fallen in love with the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that parallels to your point here is, have you fallen in love with the process of who you are and the life you're living? Mm-hmm. Or are you just constantly chasing an end result?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that mindset shift can really, really change just how you show up every day.
Mm-hmm.
And when you know how to change how you show up every day, suddenly you change how your experience is, and then you change how you answer those questions.
Totally. It makes me think of, I do this talk to myself all the time. Like, how are things enough right now? How am I okay? Whether things fall apart, I'm still okay.
Right.
Whether the world falls apart, it already is, I'm still okay.
Yeah.
I have exactly what I need right now, just right here, right now. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but right here, right now, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think any of this is generational?
I
mean, I hear so much of this, and there's a book I love called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I don't know if you've read this or not.
No.
But so many of our parents, I don't know how old you are, I'm 47.
32.
So, I mean, but our parents grew up and it was be a man, suck it up.
Right.
Don't have emotions.
Yeah.
In that competitive spirit of win, get out there and win. I think that's a generational thing. And I was never taught emotional maturity. I was never taught regulation until I was a leader. Kind of a similar situation to you. You get in front of people and you realize that something makes you mad. You stuff it down and it slowly comes out in a different way at somebody and shows up as emotional dysregulation and emotional unintelligence.
Right.
Until that, you really have to kind of get smacked in the face by that and go, oh, this isn't working. Somebody has to sit you down and go, hey, you have potential, but this ain't working. And then you have to want to change. You have to want to seek that book and read that book. And that's when the journey, I think, for a lot of people in our positions who are in that 30 to 50 age range, who kind of have that wake up moment and go, hey, I was never taught this stuff and nobody's ever going to just teach it to me. A lot of people sit down with Debra for the first time and they go, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then that light bulb hits and it's addictive because it's like, and you want to look back. It's so frustrating. There's a John Mayer. So I was mowing my yard the other day and I even wrote this voice note. I want to read this because I thought it was so cool. I'm sorry, I don't want to take up all the time here. The John Mayer line was, well, maybe I can't find it here now. It said, I can't wait to find out what's wrong with me so I can say that's the way I used to be.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such an interesting line in his song. And it's like, isn't that the goal? That we're always working to figure out what it is, how we get better so that you can go, oh, that, and it's okay. None of that is wrong. None of it is good. None of it is bad. But it's a constant journey.
Yeah.
And you had that manager tell you that. And then you started learning. It sounds like emotional dysregulation was something that you, through 9/11 and all the things, kind of grew up in.
Oh yeah. Oh,
And me too. I'm 100% middle child.
Yeah.
I made success out of spite.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this because nobody said I could.
Right.
And then you realize, and that comes from a center driving force of nobody thinks I'm good enough,
Right.
which is, if you look back on it and you go, hey, if you as an adult could go tell that kid you're good enough, like, how would you feel? And now you're here and you're like, I didn't need any. I am totally good enough. And that's where this work gets you.
And seeking validation too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we maybe didn't receive love the way love is meant to be provided as we were growing up. And so we sought that out through external validation, whatever way that looked. Right. For me, it was, I want, I see this vision of this successful Army officer and Apache pilot as someone who's successful. And if I reach that I'm going to have this source of love that I don't, that I never felt. Well, we constantly chase that and we never actually, it's a fallacy. It's empty in a way.
It becomes, our worthiness must be earned.
Right.
And
Transactional.
it's transactional. And so why do we talk about this in leadership? It's because scarcity thinking, which is what, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, you're not enough, we got to keep running. Scarcity thinking brings scarcity outcomes.
Right.
Scarcity thinking can never bring abundance or the outcomes we want. And I'm still baffled, and I don't know how to say this enough, or maybe I need to say it differently, but I'd love your thoughts on this. But I'm always like talking to beautiful leaders and these CEOs who've accomplished so much and, millions and billions. And I'm like, you could probably have double the revenue.
Right.
If you changed the way you are with yourself, because you're running hard and you're doing more of the same thinking, more of the same behavior, and you're frustrated and it's a push. It's not sustainable. And your people aren't engaged because you're pushing them, and no one wants to be pushed, and people want to be a part of something. And so what I've found is when I say this, scarcity only is going to breed scarcity. You can't get abundance. You can't get the outcomes you want. That's why Einstein says doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is insanity. And people still do it.
Right.
They continue to run this rat race. So what do you say about that? How do we get what do you tell people?
Yeah, I think, I like to talk a lot about the difference between the science and the art of leadership. And I think in leadership circles, which is what we're in, a lot of people tend to talk about the art of leadership, the soft skills, even just the emotional intelligence. It's all part of the art of leadership. But what I like to say a lot too is we tend to don't give the science of leadership enough credence, because it's the science of leadership that allows the art of leadership to do the work it needs to do. And to your point about how this shows up in leading teams is when we're not aware of who we are and when we're chasing this external validation, or we're chasing this success because our feet aren't on solid ground, we project that onto our teams. And people feel that. And they feel, to put it bluntly, they feel like they're being used. They feel like they're an output. They feel like they're just a part of a system. So this person,
a robot,
whoever it is, can get what they're after. But when we lead from a place of empowerment, when we lead from a place of I am responsible for this team and I'm responsible for the outputs of this team, but I also know that everybody on this team needs this team to be successful in order to thrive in their own lives and progress in their own lives and provide for their own families. And the way I do that can also make them a better person, a better husband, a better father, a better wife, a better mother.
That's right.
All of a sudden, we create this dynamic where, one, people want to be here. Two, we're taking care of them. Three, we're making them better people. And when those things start to fall into place, what do you think is going to happen in the organization? People are going to have better ideas. You're going to have more healthy confrontation. People are going to be more committed to getting their work done on time. They're not just going to be clocking in and clocking out.
They're going to feel safe to share their thoughts,
Right.
and because they know that they're going to be heard. And I believe that most people don't feel there's a space to share their ideas,
Right.
or that they're welcome to bring those things forward. And so they unintentionally, unconsciously think, why bother?
Right.
And it becomes, like you said, a transaction for people. And I know that engagement continues to decline in workplaces, and people get put on a performance measure.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, how do you think that is working?
Right.
And I know I'm going to just remind everyone, because I've said this before, but the pattern I've noticed, it's this cycle. And I just spoke in February to a group of 16 CEOs, and they're all shaking their head yes, because they can see the pattern that they have is their attachment to having the outcome the way they want it, and that fear that's driving that that anxiety to make sure it happens gets woven into checking in on the C-suite, and are you doing what you need to be doing, and how's it coming along, or how's that client situation, and maybe even like going in on a meeting with them unasked, or and I said to these CEOs, can you see that? And they're like, yes. And I said, what does it say to your team?
Yeah.
You don't trust me. And so they unintentionally pull back. And I've heard them actually say in Dimitri's company that I was at, I heard 12 executives say to the CEO, why bother? Because you're going to check anyway. You are going to get your hands in the cookie jar, and there isn't room for me. And so then the CEO gets upset that they're not stepping forward, and they put them on some performance plan, and then they get stalemated, and they're like, I'm not doing this, or they quit, or they get fired, and round and around we go. And have you seen this as well?
Yeah. I mean, that was me. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I know you do Enneagram.
Yeah.
Most of my personality, I read the book Personality Plus by Florence Littauer. It's more like a temperament.
Okay.
Analysis, if you will, assessment. And I am your case study for perfectionist, right? Introverted perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect. I want it to be done my way. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to get it done. And I think most of the people that strive for C-suite leadership positions are either perfectionists or hard chargers, right? Success driven people. And really the fine line there is, are they more extroverted or introverted is where that tends to go. But that was 100% me, right? Like things have to be done this way. Like there's a standard, there's a quality for it. And what I think is interesting though, when you enter into leadership, you will, no matter how hard of a work you are, there's only so much you can do. And you will, as a leader, at some point in your career, reach a point of burnout if you continue to try and do everything yourself and micromanage everybody. So at a certain point, like leadership is going to force you to trust someone else.
Yes.
At some point and in some way, shape, or form. So, and you talk about this a lot. All of these things are part of the science of leadership, right? Follow-ups, one-on-ones, stand-ups, check-ins. So there's structure there that's important. But how you show up to that structure changes everything. If you show up because you trust them and you're there asking what you can help with, what do you need from me? What resources do you need? Where are you stopped, and how can I leverage my influence above you in the organization to help you take the steps forward you need to take? That's very different from showing up like you just explained, saying, hey, when is this going to be done by? Let me see where you're at.
Yeah.
I need this today.
Yeah.
Where are you at with it? And so I think, when we're able to, when we've done the work to audit who we are, we can then manage how we show up. And when we understand how to do that, we're aware enough of the people around us and how they're showing up. And then we can manage how we relate with them. Yeah. And that's emotional intelligence in a nutshell. I
love that. And it also invites, leadership is about modeling who we're becoming and choosing who am I going to become today? And I like to ask that question, like, you want to double your revenue? Who do you need to become to get there? And it shows your team that you're being responsible for your thinking, your feeling, and your behaviors. And it models to them, wow, what would it look like if I did that?
Yeah.
And it's not, do as I say and don't do, but
Yep. Heard that one a lot growing up.
Yeah, exactly.
We were just talking about that in my small group last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. How funny, because we were reading through Ecclesiastes and we got to the chapter about authority.
Yeah.
And how the Bible often tells us to actually submit to authority.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that often look like? And one of the discussion questions was, when you were growing up, did you often have your parents tell you because I said so, or do as I say instead of as I do?
Yes,
right?
totally.
So we all kind of, so it's funny that came up in the conversation.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And, speaking of children and parents, and I just want to say, I thank God for my children because they help me become who I am.
Yeah.
Your children, those irritations that you have with your kids, those frustrations, those, why aren't they listening? This is my daughter was very different than my son. And I'd be like, she was adopted from China and she grew, from a very young age, she had to help take care of herself.
Right.
And, I was just like, why doesn't she listen to me? Why does, it was like, if I said black, she went white. If it was, whatever it was the opposite. And it was basically villainizing her because I wanted her to be different so that I felt better. And I did this for years. And I finally had to come to her and say, I'm so sorry, honey. I love you. And you are perfect just the way you are. And it's my work that wanted to feel better so that you could, when you would be different, instead of looking at what have I not healed inside of myself?
Wow.
What have I not healed inside of me? And that's when we get triggered, people, dear people, from our spouses, our kids, our friends. It's never about the other person. It's about us. It's a reflection. It's a mirror back to us that there's work still for us to look at. And that's what taking radical leadership responsibility is about. And if we can do that with our teams, when we are triggered, it's like, oh, there's something here that I need to pay attention. And this person is showing up just the way they are for my learning and growth, which is how we started with Brandon saying, how is this for my learning and growth that these things are occurring?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They say, I'm not a parent yet, but they say that parenting is one of the most powerful applications of leadership.
That's right.
I've had mentors tell me to read parenting books because you'll learn more about being a good leader by reading a parenting book than you will by reading most leadership books.
It's funny you say that. I read a book called Scream Free Parenting.
Yeah.
And
I know who wrote that.
Yeah, it was
this
amazing book. But one of the principles was, don't let your children control your emotions. If you've ever heard a parent say, my kids are driving me crazy. Anybody ever heard that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm said that.
Right? Yeah. And you kind of, if you think about that word, you go, so a 4-year-old is controlling your 35-year-old emotions. You're allowing a 4-year-old to control how you feel. Like, who's in control of this situation right now? And, but it's if you think about it like that, you go, well, no, I'm not going to let a 4-year-old control how I feel. Well, you just said they're driving you crazy. And it's a weird way to go, you're a grown-ass adult. Be in control of yourself. It's how you're responding to the stimuli from a child. And your child feeds off of that. I mean, if you respond to a 3 or 4-year-old and you lose your mind and you scream and yell, you may go, I didn't mean to do that, or I lost control. Everything that they learn from you. So when they see you respond by screaming and yelling or swearing or whatever it is, by default, that's how they learn. That's how you respond in that situation. And so the idea of being a parent and as a leader, leading by example, showing regulation in that moment, not letting your kids drive you crazy, not losing your mind, teaches them calm, It teaches them patience. It teaches them regulation. And you didn't no idea how much they're watching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
very similar to leadership, like
and,
you just mentioned.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Think about that in the context of most organizations.
Yeah.
The most development most leaders get is simply the modeling they have from the people they've worked for.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Ooh,
And the
that's
people
frightening.
they've worked for, the most development they've ever gotten is from the people that they worked for.
That's right.
The stats, I mean, they shift every year to year when you get new reports come out and stuff. But the stats are actually kind of crazy. It's like, I think it's up sometime. It'll fluctuate between 40 and 60% of managers who say they feel like they've received adequate development or training for the responsibilities and requirements of the role, or 60% of new managers fail within 24 months, or all these different things. Then you stop and think, like, and you look at this from a perspective, and it's the same thing with parenting. I think how many people have had that aha moment. And again, I speak to this from an outsider perspective because I'm not a parent yet, but how many people have you interacted with that have that aha moment when they saw themselves in their child and they realized they had to make a change? And I think a lot of managers experience that too. But, I think it's different in parenting because you have so much love and investment in that human being. But a lot of times in management, you don't.
Mm.
I think a really important piece to that is, I mentioned when a child is 3 years old, how if you get that moment when they're 3, it's great. I think if your child is 23 and you are hearing this and you go, oh, that's what I did, it's not too late.
That's right.
I think people think, well, I'm already 65. I'm not going to change my ways. Like, it is not too. I see so much Instagram of kids of emotionally immature parents who are going no contact. We're not going, like, it's okay if you're one of those parents to say, I need to do that work. I need to identify what that is. It is never too late. If you're 19 or 99, start the work.
Absolutely.
It is imperative for you for growth, and it's not too late no matter where you are in this stage.
That's right. It's freeing yourself because that is tying you to suffering. That's emotional. And I just want to say a plug, Brandon. Thank you for bringing up regulation. So again, dear people, we have not been taught what to do with our emotions. And so when we talk about regulation, what really does that mean? And it is noticing as soon as you start fear, frustration, sadness, anger, rage, take up, you're normal. There's nothing wrong with you. First of all, say, oh, there's something coming up, and take a pause, meaning remove yourself from the situation if possible, change the physical location if you can, excuse yourself, go to the bathroom, get outside, move your body, and breathe. You've heard me say that many times. Breathe deeply, because when we are in dysregulation, we're not fully breathing. The body feels you are in threat, and the whole rib cage pulls in and you can't fully breathe, and then you can't even think clearly and you're spinning and you're out of control. So the way to do that is excuse yourself, give yourself tender love, thank yourself for noticing that you're dysregulated, take a few belly breaths all the way, belly, chest, nose, hold your breath if you can for 2 seconds and release it more slowly. Do it 3 times. Make it a practice of breathing deeply like that when you're not triggered, so you remember to do that more and more when you are triggered, because it actually rewires. When you breathe like that, friendly reminder, everyone, it rewires your blood chemistry, just that type of breathing, and it oxygenates your brain, because we're not thinking straight. We really aren't thinking straight when we're dysregulated. We cannot make a good decision. We're going to make a half-baked decision, and we're not going to get the outcome that we want relationally or whatever outcome we're trying to seek. So I just want to remind everyone about that.
I think feeling your feelings all the way through. I've called Debra on multiple occasions when I have been angry, right? Where I've had something that has made me mad, and she go, how are you doing, dear one? And I will say, I'm just having a real terrible day and I'm really angry. And she'll go, oh, my favorite moment. I do this all the time. She says, well, let's take a moment to welcome that anger and thank that anger for being there, because that anger for being there is telling you, it's an indicator. So let's take a moment and let's thank that anger. And I'm like, I'm mad. And I go, we're now thanking the anger. And then once you can kind of reframe that and go, okay, the anger is telling, this is a learning. This is a red light saying, there's a learning happening. There's a learning happening. Thank that anger because it's telling me there's a learning. And then she goes, now grab your steering wheel and scream as loud as you can. And I'll be in the middle of Green Hills and I'll grab my steering wheel and I'll go put it on mute and I'll just go, ah! And she'll go, how do you feel? And I'll go, I'm still mad. She'll do it again. And it's feeling those things. And I will yell and I will get all that anger out.
Yeah.
And she goes, all right, now let's center. Let's take some breaths. And at that point I can go, all right, now let's take on this learning. And I'm not in that moment of anger, but I felt that anger all the way through. I think that anger, but that's such I do that alone now. When I feel angry, I go, thank you, anger, for being here. And I walk through that.
Yeah.
But it's magical. Instead of me, oh, I just suck it down. I'm mad. I'm going to get back at somebody. The next meeting I go into, you think I'm my most authentic self when I don't express that anger? You think I'm going to go into that meeting the best version of me?
Yeah.
I love that you brought this memory up. I love this. Guys, this is a practice. We're practicing learning how to be with ourselves. We're practicing how to lead ourselves so that we can show up as a leader, whether it's our children or we're leading an organization. And I just want to say, Brandon, real quick. So just everyone, why the emotions come up is for intelligence. You've heard us say that. And so when we can release the feeling, whatever it is, and emotions only last 90 seconds, Brandon said that at the most, and they come in different waves, intensities, or less intense. But anger, for instance, when that emotion passes, then we can ask ourselves in our mind, anger means what no longer serves me. That's what anger means. And we can get the wisdom and we can step back and the way I'm treating myself doesn't serve me, or the way I'm talking to other people doesn't serve me, or doing something that I've done over and over again no longer serves me. So it is super wise, anger, and all of our emotions are. So I just want to give a plug for why we want to say thank you, emotions, for being here.
Yeah, I've two thoughts on that. I think you guys, I'm really interested to hear how you think. One is I want to talk about the science of leadership behind what you just shared. And in aviation, I talk about this a lot. Aviators, about once you get through the initial phase of learning how to actually fly an aircraft, I would say about 80% of your training after that is emergencies. And in aviation, all emergencies have a simple process. It starts with an awareness. And then after the awareness, it goes to identification. And from identification, you then proceed into the corrective action you have to take to navigate that emergency. And I talk about this in leadership all the time, especially personal leadership, because this applies to running a team as well, or running a project, or running a program, or a business, because you can look at it from a less leadership perspective as well. But in personal leadership, 99% of the emergencies, we become aware through our emotions. Right? It's when someone confronts you and you have that fight or flight response. So the emergency action is, I'm aware of the anxiety or the anger or the whatever you want to name it in that moment. Now I think, okay, I'm triggered. Now that I feel that, I can take a breath and say, what's my process? How would the best version of myself respond in this moment? Have I thought about that already? And then you proceed through those steps. And the way, and this parallels into my biggest breakthrough with emotional intelligence, is I read in a book when I was still trying to learn about this kind of stuff that a vast majority of people can only identify about 5 to 10 emotions. Things like anger, sadness, anxiety, happiness, joy. But think about all the other adjectives tied to emotions that are available to us in the language we have today. What does it feel to be distraught? What does it feel to be content? What does it feel to be overwhelmed? And what I realized is that almost and it's different for everybody, But all of these emotions lie on a spectrum for us.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And before you get angry, not every time, because there are some situations that spark in anger almost immediately. But most of the times before you get angry, you experience a different emotion before that. You just weren't aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when situations tend to snowball. One of the biggest challenges I've had in my leadership is learning how to navigate conflict. I'm a conflict avoider. And so when a situation that might aspire into conflict arises, I get anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm anxious, and when most people are anxious, what do they tend to do? Retreat, procrastinate, avoid.
Don't speak up.
Don't speak up. But then what happens to the situation? If you have a crucial conversation you know you have to have and you procrastinate or avoid it, what probably happens?
You're not going to speak fully.
And it typically gets worse.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Right?
Yeah.
Because two people are not on the same page. They're thinking differently about something. They're approaching something differently. And that gap's only going to widen if it's not addressed.
That manager doesn't have that conversation with you. What changes?
Right. Nothing. Right. Or it gets worse. And so at that point, that anxiety or that confusion or whatever you want to name that emotion, however you're experiencing that moment, is going to become a more severe emotion. And the more severe the emotion gets, the harder it is to navigate that crucial conversation whenever it manifests.
Agreed. So when I had said that when we're in anxiety, we're avoidant.
Yeah.
We're judging ourselves as to what to say or what not to say, and we pull back. And that pulling back of not speaking our full truth causes us to suffer. And it puts a wall between us and the other person, just like you're saying. And then it becomes a bigger wall and a bigger wall. So if we're responsible to be brave and courageous, it is being brave and courageous, guys, to try new things. We can be responsible for not putting up the wall on our side. We can't take other people's wall down. That's their responsibility.
Right.
But we can be the one to be brave enough to reveal ourselves, to be vulnerable. And that is frightening because we have lots of defenses up all the time. And so when we're uncomfortable, learning requires discomfort. And growth requires discomfort. So we want to welcome discomfort. Otherwise, if we're not uncomfortable all day long, we're just doing the same old, same old. Yeah. This has been an amazing, amazing conversation. We could be talking here till who knows when.
Easily.
So this is awesome. We're
That's how
so
fast an
grateful
hour
that
goes
you're
by.
here. Yeah. Thank you for being so awesome and growing with me and on this journey of growth and learning. And I would love to keep learning with you and from you.
That's what we have to do.
That's right.
Craig, any plugs anywhere people can get a hold of you if they want to learn more about Operation Lead?
Yeah, you can check us out at operationlead.com. There's a handful of resources available that are tied to the things we talked about today and kind of help highlight things like the science of leadership. We have a pre-flight checklist for leaders that we talk about. That's cool. So that's a little plug there. And then some resources for senior leaders around retention and engagement and the role scaling our leadership plays in that. But yeah, simply check us out at operationlead.com. I'd be happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn as well.
Love that.
Debra, what about yourself? Anything you want to be talking about? How can people, anything you have coming up, any events, anything you want to talk about?
Thank you. Actually, I have developed an assessment. It's 10 minutes to take, guys. It's for you to discover your limiting patterns. We all have a pattern. Our mind loves to run in patterns and keep us where we are. And so I'd love for you to go to my website at Sunderland Coaching. Right on the front page, you'll see there's an assessment so that you can learn about your hidden pattern that keeps you repeating the same old thing. Because as we're talking about, awareness is everything. And the more aware we are, the more aware we are. So if that's something you would love to take, please do. I'd love to support you in that if you'd like, or just take it for your own awareness. And let's see, what am I up to? I'm going to be speaking at the Entrepreneur Center coming up in May sometime. Hold on, let me look and see when it is. And it's going to be speaking on the invisible wins create the visible wins. So the invisible is what we're talking about. This inner stuff creates the visible wins. And at the Entrepreneur Center in, gosh, I'm looking, guys. Is going to be on May 14th at 11:40 to 1:30. If you are in Nashville or you happen to visit Nashville, the Entrepreneur Center in Nashville, I'll be speaking on this.
I love that. My name is Brandon Styll, and we have Nashville Restaurant Radio is my other podcast. We'd love for you to check that out as well. NARA Nashville, NARA Nashville.com is our website. We are the Nashville Area Restaurant Alliance. We help local restaurants succeed. We bring people together to build community. Love for you to check that out. Also, if you're coming to Nashville and you want to eat at a great local restaurant, check out naranashville.com and go support those restaurants. So much fun today, guys.
Fantastic.
This was fantastic. You can join us on this one if you want to. It's kind of a fun thing. We will see you next time on Shut Up
and Thrive.
Yeah, good job.